Fools.
Balrogs Blastbeats for another week, the coolest uncool podcast where a whole bunch of nerds get together. Usually there's 3, but every now and again there's 4 of us. And I'm one of your hosts, Josh Redbeard.
I'm Margy, and this is your co-host Bowie for the day. No, I'm not going to say anything. Strong side.
Howdy, I'm Grant, and actually joining us today is the super shredder guitarist from Venom Prison, Ash.
Hello.
Fuck yeah.
How's it going?
So good, man. So good. We're so glad to have you here. Now, we start every podcast asking all the hosts what is the nerdiest thing that we've done this week. So, Ash, as the guest, we'll get you to start off. What is the nerdiest thing that you've been doing this week?
This week, apart from being super busy doing work and band stuff, I've just been playing Magic cards pretty much all week. I went away to Vienna. So bearing in mind, I'm new to this, by the way, new to Magic cards. I've always wanted to play it.
Yes.
So this is why it's been a very consistent week of it. And I went over to Vienna to go and see my partner's family. And her brother was just like, I've heard you've always wanted to play Magic cards. And I was like, yeah. He was like, let's learn. So I ended up buying like 2 whole decks, a bunch of booster packs, everything. Now I just want to go to the shop and buy booster packs every 10 minutes. Like even today, I'm looking at the time going, I could get there before 4 if I'm good with my time today. So yeah, I'm completely
What are you playing Commander, or what format are you playing?
What format are we talking? Standard, modern?
So standard. Someone asked me about Commander the other day. So there's a bunch of mates that play every Wednesday, and they play Commander. And I was like, hey, can I tag along, join, and just like learn what Commander is? Because at the moment I've just been playing standard. But I've even like got to the point where like, because my partner's really good at Magic cards, so like she always like plays and shows me and everything. But it's got to the point where she gets like fed up and she's like, Ash, I've had a guts full. I don't want to play anymore. I then just move on to the app on my phone and just start carry on playing. So, I've got a little bit obsessed with it, to be honest.
Fair.
That's right. Yeah. Well, over here we call it cardboard crack, so I understand.
Yeah. I'm going to use that. I like that.
The boys have been trying to get me to play Commander for so long, and I've avoided it, but I know once I start, it's just going to be a slippery slope.
I just took apart 6 of my. I had 42 Commander decks. I took apart 6 of them, and then I accidentally, while taking these apart, built 4 more. And I haven't told Grant this, but yesterday I bought 2 more Commander decks, and so I'm back up to 42 again.
Fucking hell.
So if anyone's looking for a house to rob Josh's house. There's a lot of money in Magic cards.
Pretty much. I mean, as you can see behind me, like I have some of my collection just hanging out right here, but all my Commander decks are out in the main room. But I understand your addiction because I have a serious problem.
The only Magic cards I have were gifted to me, and they did a run of like from Avatar: The Last Airbender as Magic cards, like all the characters from that, and someone actually printed them all off for my birthday and gave me the set along with like a joke fake Black Lotus, and it was amazing.
I love that. But Grant, the nerdiest thing, what have you been doing? What's your nerdiest thing this week?
So I've been on a bit of a, I guess you'd call it a bender, playing this game called House Flipper. So it's a computer game where you basically start off, you got like this, you live in this like dingy shack and you're a handyman. So what you go onto the computer and then you like enlists yourself in jobs, and you go to people's houses and you like literally like fix their like radiators on the wall and shit. And like the more jobs you do, you like unlock a mop, and then eventually once you make enough money, you can then upgrade your own house so you can sell it to buy another house to renovate. And it's basically just it's a house renovation simulator. It's fantastic.
That's what the economy's come to. People can't afford to actually flip houses, so they just play a game.
Yeah, so
It's quite terrifying, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is terrifying, the fact that it's like, we can just put this on the Xbox Game Pass and you can all learn how to buy and sell houses.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to do it in your real life.
We'll give millennials the virtual experience.
It is absolutely on Xbox Games Pass. That's where I found it. I was tossing up between House Flipper and Power Washing Simulator, where you just go around with a gurney and you power wash cars and houses and shit. It looks fantastic.
Can they make a grandparent simulator for my parents? Because the only grandchild they're ever getting is my cat, and they're not too happy about that.
Look, I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely exists. It definitely exists. They've made Power Washer Simulator. Grandparent Simulator definitely exists.
I saw a game on Xbox Games Pass. It's called like Dungeon Boyfriend, where it's like a dungeon crawler, but you find these weapons that like turn into like these hot ass dudes. So you're like dating these swords that also turn into like Hercules and shit. Yeah, it looks wild.
I'd like to inquire within about that one, but for real life. All right, I'll go my nerdiest thing, which Josh informed me was super fucking nerdy as of just before we started recording, because somehow the boys did not know this, that I did competitive Highland dancing for 15 years. I have set all of the exams except for my final teacher exam, so one exam to go before I'm a SOB HD qualified Highland dance teacher. Even have a textbook right here. And I do teach an online Highland dance class once a week through Alternative Women's Fitness. And let's just say I'm a very mean teacher and I work people very hard, but they will have pointed toes and turnout. But so yes, I actually own a full kilt up to competitive code, which is up at my parents' house. It's in dress Macintosh tartan, which is one of my family tartans.
You have no idea how happy all of this is making me. Like,
I have kilt. Well, my mom sold my favorite competition kilt, which was my dress purple Erskine. Dress.
You're just making this up now, aren't you?
When you say dress before a tartan, it means it's got white through it, because classic tartans don't have any white in them, and white looks better when you're performing. And velvet long sleeve jacket, the knee high woolen socks, the leather shoes, got everything. Got a pair under my bed, actually. Sometimes like to bust out my bad boys. So I think she's still got my Syphilis hornpipe outfit and my jig outfit as well.
When you're doing classes for this, are you just get like foot cam or something? Like, how can you tell like the technique like over Zoom? Like, or are they just gonna take their word for it that they're doing it all right?
Look, it's this one's not too much of a serious class. I don't think I could teach too intensely on Zoom without like, I'd have to have like foot cam plus body cam, body cam footage. Oh God, body cam footage of the Highland Fling. So stay tuned, because maybe I'll sit my teacher's exam and be qualified to teach. Because I would love to mix up the gender norms in Highland dancing, because there's male and female. Ow, don't bite me.
Bowie disagrees. Bowie's a traditionalist.
Bowie believes in the gender binary, but it's no fair, because men have to wear a sporran when they dance, which is really funny, which is a leather pouch that hangs right over your gonads. And there's a lot of jumping in Highland dancing, so the poor men are just getting smacked in the nads the whole time. But some of the best dancers are men, because it's very good at jumping. Anyway, amazing. So I'm a huge nerd for my culture.
Amazing.
My culture.
Yeah, culture.
Iron brew and Highland Flings. That's it. Josh, you been doing anything?
I've as I like to do, I've found a new YouTube channel to hyperfixate on and watch every single fucking video this person has this person has made, and it's I was dragged in by a good piece of clickbait where the clickbait was something along the title of like, I bought an entire barn worth of video games. And I've come across this channel. This channel has a terrible name. It's called Chase After the Right Price. And it's about a guy called Chase who tries to find the right price for like secondhand video games and whatnot. But this particular video, he finds some dude whose dad and like both his uncles and like two other people, they all own separate game stores. And then this dude bought all of the game stores and combined them into this like big barn in his house. And so this dude Chase goes into it because originally he was just going to buy some video games, but he ends up buying the entire fucking barn of it. But he's got everything back to like Atari 2600, through all like the Dreamcast games, through like has like shelves and shelves and shelves of like Nintendo 64 shit. And it just it made me just want to go and like start flipping video games because like this collection is fucking phenomenal.
Well, that's clearly
I thought it was because you couldn't flip out. Yeah, you can't flip houses anymore. So let's start flipping video games.
That is it, isn't it? It has moved to like, what collectibles can you flip? Because it's not a house or anything of great value.
Yeah, in 20 years we're gonna have like Yu-Gi-Oh card flipping simulator.
Hey, with my art conservation skills and your extensive knowledge of video games, I can make them look nice.
That's true.
And then you can deal with all the things, because knowing me, I'd be like, this original, very old game, $10? I don't know.
But yeah, the stuff that he finds, because he's been doing it, like the reason why it's such a crappy name is because he started like flipping on like eBay and shit when he was like 8 years old, and now he's 28. But I mean, like Ash, as you just kind of said, like, you know, like people now unfortunately have gotten to the stage where they know what this shit is worth. And so if I go on like Facebook Marketplace now, people are selling like Sega Master Systems for like $500, and like they're selling Super Nintendos and like 2 games for about the same price. It's like people have realized, oh, it's not worth $5 as my parents probably sold my fucking Nintendo 64 for. It's like,
I like how you started that phrase with "unfortunately." It's like, I can't rip old people off anymore. What a shame.
I can't get into
God
this game.
Damn it!
Unfortunately, no, it's unfortunate for me because I just want to, as you've seen with my Magic the Gathering collection, I don't want to like flip and sell. I just want to own it all. I want to hoard because I'm a massive fucking hoarder. But yeah, this is playing a lot into my hoarding at the moment. So yeah, Chase After the Right Price. Terrible name for a YouTube channel, but really entertaining. The dude's really endearing. And yeah, I've watched every video that he's put on his channel for like 3 years.
Okay, TV show idea. The Price is Right, but for flipping video games, and you just get nerds on there guessing the price of video games.
I give it 3 years and it'll be a thing. That will definitely
All right, let's do it. Let's
thing.
make it. I'm good to go. I'll be your host.
We should trademark it now. Just so they have to buy it off of us later. I don't want to make the thing. I just want them to pay for the rights.
100%. 100%. But we're going to move into the medium beat now. And, you know, we usually, we run through a couple of different, segment ideas for this thing. But, you know, Ash, as you're the guest, when we have a guest on, we like to know a little bit more about them before we kind of move into the main beat of the show. And, you know, tonight's a lot about like nerds in metal and the intersection of both, because it goes a lot deeper than people think. And so I wanted to know maybe 2 things about you. Let's go. What is your nerdiest pleasure, and what is the nerdiest thing that you own?
Oh, that's most things I own are probably considered nerdy, if I'm brutally honest. I think my most prized possession, I'd say, is my Final Fantasy collection, and we're including like guides, like, you know, legit guides, not like the unofficial stuff. I went and bought the official guides. I've got all the originals, apart from 1 and 2, actually. But everything else I've pretty much got original, and it just ended up getting to the point where I was so precious over it that I've ended up like boxing them up safely. And when I say safely, I really mean safely. And they're now in my attic, and they won't even be touched. And even to the point where it's like, I always get this urge every year to play Final Fantasy VIII again and again and again. And I can't even help myself to the point where I don't want to get the original out the attic. I'm like, I'll emulate it. I'll download it. I'm not touching it. I cannot touch it. Like, it's fine. It's safe where it is. I've made this mistake before where I've kind of, you know, got things out the attic and gone, I don't need it anymore. I'll sell it. And we were talking about the value of stuff before. There's things I've sold which I wish I never sold, like Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes on the GameCube. I imported it before it got released here, and I sold it, I think, to one of the game shops years ago, and they were like, "Hey, £10 trade-in, is that cool?" I went on Amazon about a couple years ago, and it's like 300 quid, and I'm just like, and I look at all the games that I've sold, and I'm just thinking, right, that's never happening to Final Fantasy. I'm keeping them until they're worth $1 million. That's what I'm doing. So I'd probably say
if you need storage tips, slide into my DMs. I study art conservation and I know how to store things.
I just want to preserve all my Final Fantasy collection until the point that someone goes, "This is worth $1 million," which by that point I'll probably be dead anyway. But I just want to know.
Your grandkids can be rich if the world's not on fire.
Well, I think if you just leave the disc in between, if you leave the disc in between two books, you might be able to like put it in a frame afterwards, like an old flower.
What are you missing? Like, is there any holy grails from this collection though? Like, are there things you're you're on the hunt for?
This collection I've had for a long, long time. I've not done anything to it for years, but it's just one of the things that I don't really hoard. I don't really keep things, if I'm honest. But my Final Fantasy collection is the one thing I just cannot part ways with. Like, over the years, like, you know, guitars, vinyls, you know, video. Actually, saying that, I've never sold a games console. I've got all my games consoles since I was a kid from the Mega Drive. So I've got the Mega Drive and pretty much everything onwards. Like, even the Game Gear. Do you remember the Sega Game Gear?
Yeah.
That needed like 48 batteries and lasted like 10 minutes. Like, my dad, when I was a kid, my dad was like, "You can only play on this once a month because it cost me about £100 in batteries and it lasts like 10 minutes. So play James Bond for like 10 minutes and it's like, oh, that's great while it lasted." And, you know, still to this day, it still remains like that. I'm like, too many batteries, not bothering.
You could probably hook it up to like a car battery or something.
It needs, to be fair, I think it'd only run for an hour on a car battery. I don't know what this thing is consuming.
You need to put an alternator in there.
All right, now you're into a money idea, Grant.
Yeah.
Do you have any Final Fantasy tattoos?
No, I don't. And for some reason, I've never got anything game or like, you know, film or even music related. I never have for some reason. I don't know why. Like, would imagine I would, to be honest, but just never got round to doing it.
I'm planning a milk lizard tattoo to spite Josh's. So Josh said he had a milk lizard tattoo, like, you know, the Dillinger song, and it's not a lizard with boobs, a lizard in a glass of milk, a lizard, anything cool like that. So I'm planning one that involves milk and a lizard. I'll get back to you.
Mine is a very serious Dillinger escape plan tattoo because I'm a serious man who has.
Mine's going to be spiteful because I run on spite.
I mean, we could do a whole episode on dumb tattoos because I definitely have some of those.
Yeah, let's just ignore all the things getting lasered off me.
But sorry, go on, Grant.
I was going to say, so going back to your Final Fantasy collection, you said about 1 and 2. They never even came out of Japan, did they?
No, and I'm pretty sure that there was something wrong with the physical of 1 as well. Like, the actual physical, there was something wrong with it, and I think it was like halfway through the game it would just go off. Like, there was something wrong with it. Like, it makes sense why they weren't that great until about 6. Like, this is the other thing I always have to mention about Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy, but I'm not going to sit here and say that the early ones were great. Like, I think 5 and 6 were good, but like, I think 7 is really where it kind of all started properly in my eyes. And then over the years, I kind of backtracked and kind of went to 5 and 6 and we're like, yeah, they're pretty good, but I'm not going to...
In the States, like Final Fantasy VII was actually Final Fantasy III for them. I think it was released in the States as Final Fantasy III.
Of course they would do something like that.
Yeah, they just started.
They would do that.
They imported 5 and just called it Final Fantasy, and then just started from there. They're like, it'll do.
Wait, what number is Final Fantasy up to now?
15, 16?
Yeah, we're moving to 16 soon. Which is amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, 16 games.
As someone, and Ash, I hope you'll stay on the line as I admit this. Like, I've never played a Final Fantasy game in my life.
Is there Mickey Mouse in
it? Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, that's the one.
Can I start anywhere? Like, can I start with Final Fantasy 8, or do I have to start with like 5 or 6 or 1 or whatever?
Anywhere you want. They're all different stories. Like, the only thing that you may notice is if like a universe kind of like matches up and there might be something related from it, but the story is different every single time.
Fair enough. But it's the same characters, yeah?
Nope, different characters, different story, different everything. That's why there's so many of them, which is a great idea, because they've gone, don't worry about continuing a story. You're already going to get 60 hours on one game. We don't need to give you any more of this story. But when they did try, so I think it was that god-awful Final Fantasy, I think it was 13, they tried doing like loads of spin-offs from it, and it was just like, the first one was shit, the second one was shitter, and the third one was fucking awful. And it was just like, why are you doing this? Like, no one wants this. This is shit. And then I think they've tried to do it with this remake at the moment where they're like, oh, we're going to do like 70 different spin-offs. And it's like, don't bother. We don't want it. We're not going to buy it. We just don't want it. Like, you can release it all you want. Like, I literally don't care. If it's not just the number of the game, like Final Fantasy 10 or Final Fantasy 11, I'm just like, no, I'm out. Like, even they're doing this like chocobo racing on the Nintendo Switch, and I was like, I'm not interested.
But that's so interesting because if I think about Final Fantasy, I think of the character Cloud, and I just kind of assumed that he was like Link for Zelda. Like, I just assumed that Cloud was in every Final Fantasy, and now I'm hearing he's not.
He makes cameos, doesn't he? A couple.
Yeah,
oh, he's cute, and he's got a very big sword.
Yeah, how he holds that sword is just beyond me. Like, it is literally bigger than his entire body, and he's like, I've got one arm. This is cool. I've got this. But
like,
I
mean,
it's
like,
fantasy. It doesn't need to follow rules.
Sephiroth flies around with one wing, so I guess there's worse things going on.
Wouldn't that just make you go in a circle?
Yeah, I think so, but
pretty much, yeah. But I think, yeah, 7 was the one that broke out into like Western gaming, I guess, and I think it become quite iconic. Like, I could definitely get into a debate many times over the fact that I don't think 7 is the best. I think Final Fantasy 8 is definitely the best because the story is absolutely ludicrous, batshit crazy. The characters are just insane, and it's, I don't know, just the whole, you had to play the card game in like within the game to like gain different types of magic, or like if you were like buffing weapons. So it was like you had to play cards all the time to kind of do that. But you'd also draw magic from playing cards, where like it stopped. It kind of stopped the grind. It wasn't like you were running into random encounters and grinding and grinding and grinding. It was like, just go and play cards. You're going to get more from this.
What was the first Final Fantasy that you played?
First one, I would have been... I remember the first one was 8, and I think that's another reason why 8 might be my favorite, because I remember I was off. I remember being off school because I had an operation on my ears when I was a kid, and I remember just being like, you know, what am I going to do if I got to be off school for a month? Like, what am I going to do sitting at home? And my dad was just like a pirate and loved copying games. So he just come home from work and he was like, my friend suggested you play this, and it was Final Fantasy 8, and I'd never played anything like that before. And
I was really hoping you were going to come and say, and he was like, "Army son, please, Final Fantasy."
My dad's just a pirate.
Hella pirate.
He's got a parrot on his shoulder.
Yeah, he hasn't got the aesthetic. He hasn't got the aesthetics of a pirate. He just does pirate-like things.
Does he celebrate International Talk Like a Pirate Day?
No, knowing my dad, he's too miserable to do that. He would probably swear and say every possible thing at me under this planet that you could imagine insult me with. So yeah, can imagine my dad wouldn't be too great on National Pirate Day.
Probably likes to prefer to himself more as like a privateer rather than a pirate.
Yeah, he just fucked the system. He'd go to Blockbusters, say, which game do you want? Pick one. It's £2.50 for 2 nights. I'll copy it, and you've got it forever. So every Friday.
To anyone listening from these corporations, this is no admission of guilt. You cannot sue. This is purely for entertainment reasons.
Yeah,
that's probably why Blockbusters went under, because everyone was just going there every Friday and going, I'll copy that one, I'll copy this one. But no, they were better days. They were easier to get all the cheap games.
Yeah, the person with the CD burner was always the most popular person. Like when I was like late 90s into early 2000s, if you were the person that had the CD burner, you were the coolest fucking person around because you gave people everything. Like I remember getting I got Scary Movie 1 on VCD when I would have been in 1999 off a friend of mine. I'm just like, you are my favorite human being ever.
Funny you mentioned DVDs and films. I never forget my dad was copying films. No, at this point I'm pretty sure he was just downloading them. I think he'd mastered it at this point, and he was like, I know how to get this without any help at all. And it was the summer holidays, and you just have the blank CD where you'd write on the front. And he was like, I've left you a film in the living room to watch today if you get bored. So I went downstairs and looked at his disc, and his handwriting was pretty shit, if I'm honest. And it just said Ian Legend, and I was like, what the fuck is Ian Legend? What the fuck is Ian Legend, man? And I was like, I gotta check this out. So I put it in, and then before you know it, I was like, what on earth is Ian Legend? Get about 20 minutes in, I'm like, oh, I'm watching I Am Legend. Just remember my dad coming home from work. I was like, Dad, that film is definitely not called Ian Legend.
I'm just imagine the trailer. It's and Will Smith is Ian Legend.
I mean, I still don't know why it's called I Am Legend, to be fair, but that's just because
Ian Legend actually makes more sense.
Ian Legend makes more sense if that was his character name.
Sounds like a comic book. Ian Legend.
I really hate being kids these days will never understand, but that also makes me remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I remember the other movie that I had on VCD was the Fast and the Furious, but I hadn't seen it at the cinemas, and I hadn't watched it on VHS or DVD or anything. So the version that I got didn't have the soundtrack layer, and so there was no music throughout the whole film. It was just audio. So I thought that's how the film actually fucking was the whole time. And it was the same. We had a pirated copy of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, but it was from a cam from a cinema, and the cam was cropped in, so it wasn't at widescreen. So I missed about this much of the film.
Literally.
I could only see 2/3 of the film, and I couldn't see the other half of it. But because of streaming services, you can now just
2/3 and a half. That's good maths.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is how you didn't notice, but so you watched Fast and the Furious, right? There's a party scene. You didn't think something was up when all these people were having a silent party?
No, I thought that's literally there is whole scenes of them when they're showing all the cool cars off, and there's this cool bass song, and there's showing the subwoofers working and nothing's happening. I was like, oh, this is a bit weird. But
and then you just got Ja Rule yelling "Menage" with no music in the background.
It's art house Fast and the Furious.
Absolutely. I was like, oh, this is an interesting way to do a car film, but cool, man, good on you. And then,
A24 miles.
Yeah, and then years later saw the actual thing and went, okay, there's the soundtrack. Jesus. But as we move into the long beat, as we have to at some point for this podcast,
have to.
Yeah, kind of. Ash, as I said, we wanted to get you on here because you play in a very prolific and currently very hyped metal band, and I believe
it's called Metallica.
Yeah, it's called.
I fucked up my notes.
Metallica. AKA Venom Prison, which I love that you named Venom Prison because, quote, it was the most metal name you could imagine, which is fair. Absolutely, very, very fair. That's my favorite quote. But I think it would.
I'm glad you picked up on that, if I'm honest, because not many people have picked up on that. Everyone always oh, what does Venom Prison mean? I'm like, it's just cool as fuck. Let's be honest.
It's so metal. It's so fucking metal. But I think it would blow a lot of quote unquote pedestrian metal fans to know that most people in punk and metal are also just massive fucking nerds. There is so many nerds within our scenes, and so I guess we wanted to start from this point. It's when did you first realize that there was such an intersection between metal and being a nerd?
It's a good question. It's a good question because I think it's always been there for me. I think even when I was like in school and stuff, I was always like into football and like I was quite a sporty guy. I was always into skating and like there's lots of stuff to do around Wales that always involves like outdoors and sports, whether it was like mountain biking and anything like that. And I never really thought of it as being nerdy, but like a lot of my friends weren't into the same things as me. Like whenever I'd play like Final Fantasy, for example, like they'd come over and be like, "What the fuck's this shit? Like, let's play FIFA." And like they were always like they'd never understand, and like I'd be in like a cutscene or a big dialogue section. I'd be like, "Yo, you need to fuck off for 30 minutes. I gotta read this." Like, you know, and like, but like they had like this mutual respect for it, where they were just like, "Oh, Ash is like doing some of his nerdy shit. Leave him alone for 30 minutes. You'll be out in a bit." And like, I don't think I ever realized that it was like nerdy, if that makes sense, because like I was doing all these things and it was weird, and I kind of like. Not many of my friends liked any of that stuff, and I think it was only when I really started going to shows more and more, and I was like bumping into people that were talking about things that I was always familiar with, and I was like, that's interesting. Like you guys are talking about something that I like that somehow none of my other mates at the time, you know, would even be into. And then I think it was like only the time where like I'd always go to shows and some of the people I'd hang out with were like a bit older than me, and they would always like give me like records or like, you know, DVDs, like especially like Hellfest 2000 DVD, and I'd go through all the sets, checking out all the bands. And then it just got to the point where like they'd start being like, "Oh, you play games? Do you want to come over at some point and like start playing like co-op stuff?" And I just go over and play games with them all the time. And then it would like get more and more nerdier, where it'd be like, "Do you like Warhammer?" And I'm like, "Actually, yeah, I do." Like no one, only my cousin would play Warhammer with me at the time. And it just all started making sense, where I was like, "Holy shit, like am I a massive nerd?" And I kind of just like almost like, it's almost like a smirk where I was just like, "Yeah, I guess I am." But like I never really thought about it, but I definitely noticed as soon as I was moving over into like going to more shows, and they'd like give me, you know, flyers to like local hardcore shows in the area and stuff. And weirdly, like you go into like, you know, the most toughest scene ever, and then turns out they're the biggest nerds on the planet because they all play Magic or like, you know, all this. And it's quite funny, really, isn't it? Like you walk in, and I think I kind of just also, you know, kind of absorbed all that. Like, you know, I started getting very into like the whole thing because to me it was all part of it. And yeah, I think from a really young age, like I was always into like nerdy stuff. Like my cousin was always into Warhammer 40k, so like I was kind of always building
that's gonna
armies.
set Josh off.
Like I was a big 40k guy. I'd have like different squads, like my Blood Angels, Tau, everything. And like, yeah, like I think it's always been there. I even from like, if I think back even further, like my first game console that I keep saying is mine wasn't mine. It was my dad's. Like my dad would always be playing like Altered Beast, Kid Chameleon, Ranger X, PGA Golf for some reason. Like that made no sense on the Mega Drive. It was dreadful on the Mega Drive. But like his friend Dickie, which is a great name, would always come over, and he'd just be like, "Oh, let's play Micro Machines," because you could play 4-player on it because it would have the cartridge with the 2 inputs on the top. And I think I was always surrounded by it, like even without knowing. So it's really hard to pinpoint an exact time. But I think early teens is when I started really being like, "Oh shit, maybe I am super into all this nerdy stuff," and only just realized. But yeah, I'd say early teens.
I love that you mentioned the like Warhammer as well, because I kind of was thinking about when I kind of first noticed the intersection of nerds and metal, and I realized it was because I used to go to Games Workshop to play for Warhammer, and they were always playing like Metallica and Sepultura, like, and I was like, yeah, this music's really, really cool. Like before I even really knew what it was, like I would have been like, you know, 9 or 10 years old or thereabouts, like first kind of listening to this music and just be like, all right, so they play this and they listen to this, and like connecting those dots together.
It is all part of the thing, though, isn't it? It's all like one big thing. Like, and I think, like you're saying, Games Workshop, it was the same for me as well when I go there just to paint. and I just kind of sit there and there'd be music on and stuff, and it was like never the radio. It was always someone playing like some record they were really into. And I think with that and kind of shows and everything, and the people that were attending the shows I was going to, and I think it just all kind of absorbed into me as such, and I just got into everything and kind of always enjoyed, like, I think the weird thing about when people talk about nerd stuff is that no one ever really talks about how social it also can be. Like for me, going to Games Workshop was I wasn't a very social kid growing up. Like I'd do things within school, like play sports and all this, but then when I'd be at home, it would be selective if I wanted to go out. I really wanted to just sit and play guitar or like kind of paint Warhammer or like play on my PlayStation or something like that. And I think when I started going to like Games Workshop, it was like almost like building confidence to then like go to shows and be around more people. And so I think it's weird to think that like people always assume nerds are like very isolated and, you know, on their own. But if anything, some of the most social things I've done has been around doing those type of things, you know?
Yeah.
I think the normies just don't know where we congregate.
I don't know. What do normies congregate over?
Beer.
Sports.
Yeah. Same.
Sports
I like. Oh yeah.
I like sports, but yeah, that's definitely where they're at.
Aperol spritzers. No, actually, I love an Aperol spritz. Oh my god, I'm a normie. Oh god.
Yeah. I was gonna say most of the socializing I do is with like our main like Magic the Gathering pod. Apart from that, I don't really interact with human beings.
I like going to shows and not talking to anyone. I love doing that. So good.
Yeah, I'm normally pretty good for that, to be honest. And everyone's always like, "Why is he so miserable?" I'm just like, I'm not miserable. I've got nothing good to say. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, tell you about my day or something? And it's like, yeah, like I haven't got anything to add to this. But
did you see what fret he just pressed there?
Oh,
like, what are you supposed to say? Oh, look,
like. Yeah, when the band's playing, what are you supposed to talk about?
Absolutely, 100%. I actually had a question that is for all three of you, because I'm actually the odd one out in this particular case, because you're all like music. Like obviously, I'm on the other side of things, but I don't play music. And maybe this is a dumb question, but it's a dumb question because the answer is yes, or because the answer is no. Is do you believe there's an advantage with being a nerd as a musician?
Did you say advantage or disadvantage? I zoned out.
Advantage.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. That depends what you're trying to gain, really. Like, I guess if you're trying to like say like technically be more advanced at your instrument, I'd say being a nerd would be advantageous because you would be more open to dissecting that and looking at it on a more micro scale as to how you would further your technique and stuff like that. Or, you know, you'd be more interested in virtuoso stuff that's not like musically, it might just like doesn't sound, you know, too crazy or whatever, but because you're a nerd, you could still like vibe with it, I guess. I don't know if that was a good explanation, but
that makes sense.
I mean, I think it's good in the case of one of my bands where our guitarist is actually recording and mixing the entire album that we're working on. Oh yes, I mean we're not working on an album, but he's like he also is rich, so he could afford to buy all the mics that he needed to do like drum mics and room mics, and he's got all the amps and shit and everything. So I mean, in that sense, it's really awesome because it means that we have a bit more creativity allowed to us in producing it. Because he's such a nerd and can talk about microphones and shit all day. But I don't know, maybe it's good because I don't mind spending like a night in playing music instead of going out and doing what people do. That's leaving the house stuff.
I think most people that aren't nerds go stand in a room of pre-recorded music rather than live music.
Oh, rather than playing it themselves.
Yeah.
Shocking.
I think that is the thing with music though, isn't it? Like, especially like when you look at like a gear, equipment, audio recording and everything, like me and Ben, who like mainly write for Venom Prison, like we've got really into like synths and a lot of electronic stuff, and it's weird because you kind of just really hone into all these things, and you get really like almost perfectionesque with them, and almost like micromanagement. And then when I always think of micromanagement, I always think of like playing Guild Wars or Neverwinter Nights, or like, you know, these big MMOs where you're like micromanaging everything. And like when I look at like when we're writing, for example, which we're doing at the moment, it's like kind of, it's like you're micromanaging everything, and it's like it translates really well from that world to that world, and you do take all these elements away, and I think it does allow you to have that, not it does allow you to have better understanding, but it also gets you into that kind of routine and almost discipline of like, okay, why do you micromanage in these games? Like, why do you do it? It's to save time, it's to be more efficient, it's to do this. And then you take that into music writing, and then you're kind of just writing song after song after song, and it's just because of the discipline of it, really. And it does come from that, and it's weird. I thought about it before, and I do see how it definitely does affect it in a weird way, but it does.
So what you're saying is I'm shit at guitar because I'm shit at StarCraft.
That is why I'm shit at guitar, yes.
Yeah, Grant's shit at guitar because he attacks his teammates on StarCraft.
I was just researching.
It was one time.
I was learning. You said the Zerg aren't good against air. I'm like, well, I haven't faced the Zerg, and you're a Zerg, so why don't I just find out?
Okay, there's a little bit of beef going on.
Killed by Ultralisk.
You'll live. Ash, are the rest of your bandmates nerds as well?
I don't think they would admit it, but I don't think they would like admit it at all. But I think they'd be like, well, I mean, our drummer just plays like League of Legends and all that all the time, and you know,
that's like uber nerd. That's just competitive nerd.
But I think that's all he plays. Like every time I try and speak to him about games, he's just like that, and I'm like, anything else? This has been years now, man. Like, literally, like, anything else you want to play? I mean,
the esports cut off for League of Legends is like 23, bruv. Just quit now.
I don't even know what he gets up to half the time. Like he's just like playing League of Legends. I'm like, you've not stopped playing that since I've known you. Like, what are you doing? But I think same with like Ben, who plays guitar. Like he plays a lot of Call of Duty.
I didn't know that was still going.
Yeah, he's got like a squad every night that goes on pretty much. So he's like super dedicated. But then I think his nerdiness then does fall into music. Like he's very into like his synthesizers and electronics and all the equipment and all the elements of hardware. So like I think same again, that nerdiness does translate over in that side of things. And then our bassist, I was saying that our bassist plays a lot of games, mainly solo campaign. He plays a lot of stuff, and he always texts me being like, just done this or just done that. Have you done this? Quite a lot, actually, thinking about it. It's quite frequently. He plays. I've just realised he plays a lot of games.
I can hear the glass shattering.
Yeah, I'm just like, holy shit, he really does. And then I think Larissa always has like a Switch or with her or something, always playing like Overcooked or like Animal Crossing or something. But then if we're all together, we'll probably be playing like Mario Party or something like that, you know? So I would say we're always playing.
Yeah. It's interesting though that you say that they wouldn't admit it, because it was a thought that I had recently, because, you know, obviously, you know, Venom Prison being the most metal name in the world, and obviously now the most metal band in the world. And there is that sort of like metal. Yeah, 100%. But there is that sort of like, you know, external sort of perception that metal is like tough and brutal and all this shit. Do you still feel at all any sort of pressure to hide the nerdiness when you're being, you know, Venom Prison Ash Gray?
Nah, not really, to be honest. Like, I kind of feel the way I am anyway, like, probably wouldn't be deemed nerdy from face value, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people don't actually know. And, you know, from an outside perspective, it's like, for example, me and Ben ride motorbikes together a lot. That's what we do, like, in our spare time if we're not writing. You know, Jeff likes doing all outdoor adventure stuff. And, like, I think from an outside perspective, I think unless you really knew each person, you probably wouldn't guess. I mean, I'm a bit more open about it. Like, I like talking about games and posting about stuff.
What? I thought you hated games.
It's the worst thing ever. Like, video games. So this is what this podcast is for, isn't it? Like, I hate video games.
Yeah, I hate them, but I just can't stop.
Like, when I said I was playing Magic cards earlier, what I meant is Magic is shit.
Yeah, I was burning Magic cards and beating up nerds who play Magic.
That's my regular Saturday night, burning Magic cards. Not going out, I just burn them in my garden. But I think, yeah, and I think, I don't know, like, face value, I don't think people would ever guess, but at the same time, I don't think I really care enough what people think, if I'm brutally honest. Like, I never did, and also, you know, even if they kind of say, oh, I would never guess this guy in Venom Prison would be into this, and it's like why like, if you think about it, like, why wouldn't I be? Like, probably wouldn't guess. You probably wouldn't guess that I go and play D&D with my friends regularly. Like, you know, so it's like, and full role play as well. Like, there's no skipping that shit. No, like, amateur stuff.
Do you costume?
No, we haven't got enough money. We're all really broke. We can't afford costumes. We just gotta sit there in our really metal t-shirts and just pretend to be whatever we can be.
It's basically a costume anyway.
Yeah, so me, I'm just playing goth for the day. But I think, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I really care, if I'm honest. Like, if I'm really honest, I never really thought about it. I always enjoy what I enjoy. And even the same as, like, I really like football. Like, I watch a lot of football. You know, I love, like, motorbikes and mountain biking and stuff. And it's like, I do mingle with a lot of people who are not into any of this stuff or even know some of this stuff exists. But it's almost kind of like, it's not the one thing that defines me, if that makes sense. Like, I have lots of other things that I enjoy doing, and yeah, I never really thought about it, and it never really bothered me, to be honest. But watch now, everyone's going to go, Venom Prison are massive nerds. Fuck them.
I want someone to be like, hey, that band's full of fucking nerds, and I'll be like, yay, come play D&D with us.
So if when you guys eventually come to Australia, I'm going to make sure that wedgies are on your rider.
And a magic booster pack, just because we're nice.
I saw
boosters.
I saw Frank Carter did that on some recent tour. He just tried it for a joke. He put on his rider that they had to bring him some booster packs, and then he was posting photos of backstage at the show, and on his rider, the venue had, like, actually delivered some booster packs with his fucking rider.
Well, I know what I'm adding to my rider.
Yeah, that's wedgies. I know what I'm doing after this. I'm updating our rider.
Do it 100%.
Your bandmates are gonna love you.
Every promoter is gonna just slag us off for the rest of our lives, isn't it? This Venom Prison, who do they think they are, asking for magic booster packs?
It's like back in the day, you know, like, there's all the stories of stuff of, like, people asked for on their riders that was crazy, and then now it's like, these people just ask you for fucking Magic the Gathering cards. My God, what's metal come to? But I love it.
Well, I mean, now I need to know, though, what is on a Venom Prison rider?
Oh, all the bad stuff, really. Nothing good. Nothing good. Just bottles of whiskey. Right. This is the bit that I can never get my head around, and I've argued this since this band has existed. So we have things like whiskey, rums, any type of hard alcohol we can have on the rider. But then we need to have sugar-free Red Bull, sugar-free Coke, sugar-free, like, diet. And I'm just like, what the fuck's this all about? Like, I'm already committing this amount of poison to my body. Why can't I finish it off with the sugar as well? The good stuff. Like,
look,
I just
as a Coke Zero addict, I understand.
But I would rather put Pepsi Max on there than Coke Zero. Like, Pepsi Max any day
I'm
over
a
Coke
Pepsi
Zero.
Max.
Honestly, they taste the same. I smoked for too many years. I can't taste anything anymore. Look at this delicious biscuit.
But it's always that's our rider always consists of like all these hard things, like hard alcohols, and then sugar frees, and then like you look to your left and there's like a bowl of fruit, and I'm like, what am I trying to commit my lifestyle to being here? Like, am I a healthy person, or am I a person who's just doing all that? Like, what am I doing with myself?
You're a healthy person who likes to drink straight liquor to fight throat infections and stuff like that.
Yeah. Life is all about balance. It's just it's all about balance.
So is that considered responsible then? I'm being responsible, really, aren't I? Because
I think it's like a tax relief. I think it's like you've got the alcohol, but to make yourself feel better about the alcohol, you have to have the no sugar and the apples.
Yeah,
like it's a tokenistic. Like you don't want the apple, you don't want the no sugar, but it just makes it easy to explain. It's like, yeah, see, I'm still healthy though because I have this green apple and I'm going to core it and fill it up with whiskey.
Sometimes, like, you do notice that like the sugar-free stuff does go and the fruit goes because our bassist like finds out we've like hidden the whiskey from him. Like, and he gets really angry, which is great. It's like the best part of being in a band, to be honest, is making him angry. It's fucking comedy.
He's the bass player. Fine.
Yeah, he's just a bass player. He's not a real musician anyway. It's fine.
Exactly.
He's just like, he'll like come into like the backstage area and just be like, "Who's hidden the whiskey?" And I'm like, "What? Why do you ask?" And he's like, "I know you're fucking with me. I know you're fucking with me. Where is it?" And I'm just like, I don't know what you're on about. He's like, "It's always there. It's always there." And I'm like, I don't know what you're on about. And he just gets super angry and just starts like flipping the room up, looking for it and everything. Like I've hidden it under like the sofa cushion or something. Like not that I've just gone and put it in the van. Like he's looking under sofa cushions and everything. Like I'm just like, what the fuck? But
hey, at least you're taking it home with you. That's important.
Oh, we just say as soon as we finish, just drink. Like it just depends what mood he's in. Because half the time it's like, is he going to make it to the stage this show? Like, are we gonna get to that point? Like, will he make it to the stage? Like, I think we played a show a couple of years ago at Glastonbury, but they made us play twice. Which, sorry Glastonbury, but that was fucking annoying.
I've done 2 shows in a night before, like 2 sets back to back. What the fuck?
Yeah. Do you know what was worse than that though? I would have preferred back to back. I played at 3 in the afternoon.
The gap is worse.
3 in the afternoon, and then the second set was at 2 a.m.
Fuck.
So like,
go to bed.
It was, They made us these camping beds and stuff, which I was like, they come and found us and was like, hey, we've made you like a really nice camping area. You've kind of got beds and like toaster and all this, and you can get your head down for a couple of hours. And I was like, that's so nice of you. Like, thank you. Like, I really appreciate that. But what they didn't tell me is they put it right behind the fucking stage. So like literally, like I was just like, what's the fucking point in this? And I think like literally like 2 a.m. I'm just like crawling onto the stage because I'm absolutely hanging out of my ass. And I'm just like, where's our bassist? And he just like literally like walked on the stage with like the widest eyes ever, just like, all right. I'm just like, what the fuck has he done? What has he done? Like, and it's like, we set off the first sample and it's just like, everyone's just like, I'm looking at our drummer Joe and I'm like, let's just get this over with. No stops, just blast the set, just let's do this. And like, all I can see is our bassist just looking over, just going, I'm ready, woo! Like the most energetic man in the entire festival. Just like at the end of the set, it's just like Larissa's like thanking everyone at like fucking 2 a.m. where anyone who's up at 2 a.m. watching us is only on drugs at that point.
Yeah, like, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for watching us, and you just see our bassist just like, woo! Just, like,
go guys, we're kicking on tonight.
I'm just like, this is amazing. We even hid the whiskey this time, and this still happened.
Sounds like you need to start asking for sedatives on the rider as well.
Yeah, we could do with that, to be honest. I think that's definitely what we need on the rider. Anything that can just prevent things, to be honest.
You reminded me of like when Download was here last time, and I was just like, kind of strolling around at one point, and I looked under the two main stages, and the setup crew had set up hammocks like under the main stage, and so they were literally trying to sleep like while Behemoth was maybe 2 meters above their heads playing, and it's like how are you getting any sleep? And they were fucking sleeping like babies. I was like,
also, why are you sleeping through Behemoth? What the fuck?
Because they would have been sitting up since like 2 a.m. and they'd be packing down at like 2 a.m. like the next morning. So like, oh, we got to get a kip in somewhere. So yeah, it's like literally like walking past the backstage, looking underneath, and yeah, there's just like hammocks with dudes sleeping in there, like while black metal is happening like this far above their heads. And I was like, I wish I had that level of sleeping talent.
That's what meth was invented for. You just stay awake. Jeez.
I think it was actually invented to invade France.
Nope, solely invented for roadies. I'm sorry.
Oh Jesus, I'm gonna fucking hurt from laughing for a while now. But I guess bringing it back to the that kind of that intersection between the two is like, what do you think is the similarities between the social experience of like metal and being a nerd?
So no, it is both social. I do feel that it like. I think even like in music is nerdy to a point. It's an obsession and it's something you nerd over. You always want to know like if you're into like collecting vinyls, who the credits go to for mixing or mastering, like who did this, who did the artwork, what pressing have you got of this vinyl? Like I want to check out discographies, and it's like oh my headphones are falling. But it's like it's even really nerdy to that point, you know what I mean? Like vinyl collecting is definitely nerdy, and I think it's the same with like attending like Games Workshop to play Warhammer. Like I feel like when people get so into going to shows and they go into shows like that regularly and they go into whatever they can go to, like I think that does go on a level of nerdiness, like just within the music realm. So I do see how they share similarities because they both have obsession within them. That's what it is.
That's very fair.
That's a really, I've never thought of it that way, that like, because you talk to like a non-music fan, like people who are like, I like anything, like one of those. And like wherein I have like particular opinions about particular albums from a band's, era, and I have particular opinions about certain musicians from a band's era and all of that kind of stuff, or like, oh, the production on this album, compared to this, blah, blah, blah. And then you talk to someone who's like, I love Taylor Swift. It's just amazing that she released an album doing, I don't know, singing about an ex-boyfriend. And you're like, oh, cool.
Yes.
Like, yes, and like, there's, that makes sense. Like, there's a certain amount of immersion.
I think, it is what you're saying as well with like the Taylor Swift thing of like, oh, there's an album coming out where, as harsh as it sounds, there's no substance to it. There's no real layers and depth. It's just, someone that I casually know is casually dropping a record and I'm going to casually check it out. Where like, for example, talking about Behemoth, when a Behemoth record's coming out, months prior to it, months before, and you're there going, when's the single dropping? When's the record pre-orders coming out? And it's like, that is a level of obsession. Like you're wanting to be there first. You're wanting to kind of dissect it and layer it and read everything into it. And it's like, it's not casual, is it? And I think that's kind of
you want to talk to your metalhead friends and be like, have you heard like the new track? What do you think of it? And get into an argument about it. And
you all want to ask each other, why isn't it as good as the Satanist?
But that's the thing, isn't it? And it's like, you flip that scenario into Magic cards, for example. Oh, I'm building this deck, and you go into the layers of what you've built into your deck. It's no different than dissecting an album. Like when I listen to an album for the first time, I'll go through it once for like leisure and just kind of enjoy it, and then I go over it again and I really dissect what's going on. That's not normal. That's not casual listening. You know what I mean? Like that's a level of
work.
obsession. Yeah, exactly. And it's like you think of like anything from like video gaming to like, you know, card games or Warhammer or anything like that. It shares that same obsession. I think it's why it's such a close knit thing, to be honest.
Yeah. These like it's hard to like shut off your brain when you want to nerd out about something so bad. Cause like even like with these 2 decks I bought the other day, like as I was like sleeving them up, I was going through all the cards inside of it and just being like, oh, I could make another deck just using this card and I could do this with it. And then I keep on going like 2 cards later, but oh, I could make a deck with this one and I could go this way with it because I know that I have these cards that'll make it do this. And then my brain just runs off on tangents. Like there was one deck that I put together that I honestly think I could have made about 10 different commander decks using just cards from it. And I'm going to pull that one out and I'm going to make this. I'm going to pull that one out. And then
you have to think like, if I play this and then this one stacks on it, then this one stacks on it, then that's awesome. But what if someone's playing this against it and then they get this against it? And how is that going to counteract? And this is why I suck at deck building, because I just sit there like,
whereas I'm quite the opposite. I'm just like, I'm going to do the thing. And then maybe someone's going to stop me, but I'm going to do the thing. And then when it works, it works.
I wouldn't dream of it.
Grant's going to fucking kill me. I'm going to invite him over to my house and he's going to kill me. Or Jared's going to have a fucking infinite combo that he swears he didn't know was in the deck, but it was 100% in the deck every fucking time. And,
we love infinite combos.
Stumbled across it.
That hurts. It really, really hurts. Well, I mean, before we wrap up the intersection of nerds and metal, I feel like I've asked a lot of questions. I want to make sure that my co-hosts didn't have something that they wanted to ask before we kind of move into the final piece.
Well, I always find I did see an article somewhere about like, because you were saying it was like the early teens when you started, you know, getting into the gaming and the whatnot. That's like the early teens is when you really start developing a personality because of brain development. And that's also when, like for me, that's like when I discovered metal and when I had like a few of my game-changing bands, which I came across. And what were like, because I mean, you know, we all like some, you know, listen to like Iron Maiden or something and you might be like, yeah, it's all right. And then you put on, I don't know, anything else, Slayer, and then you're like, holy shit, Slayer, this like, you know, some people just have that reaction to bands. So like, what were some of like a couple of bands that like for you can remember like the first time listening to them? It could even just be like an album by one of the bands where you're just like, fuck, like the pin drops.
There's so many and all different genres as well.
Yeah.
And I think when I was, so a lot of my friends, when I started going to shows, were a lot older than me, and they were really good with like always like lending me like records and stuff, and they kind of knew I was into metal. I was always into like metal and punk. I loved punk and I loved metal, but I was never sure what like hardcore and death metal and all this was. I was like completely oblivious to it, and
there's a lot of education to be done. There's a lot of learning.
That's what I mean. I had no clue, but I remember I was in school and I was just wearing like a camo Route 1 backpack from the skate shop, and I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was a cool camo backpack. And I was in year 7, and a guy in year 11, who's now my good friend, kind of come up to me and was like, "Are you into hardcore?" And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, what? Where are we going?
You can't even ask that question anymore.
Well, I was like, what? I was like in year 7, my first year of high school, and I'm just stood at the front gate, and the kid in the highest year is just like, "Are you into hardcore?" And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, are we gonna fight? Are we gonna fight? I literally thought like we were gonna get ready for a fight or something. I was like looking at my mate, being like, this big kid's gonna try and do us. Like, we're gonna have to do something. And I said, "I don't know what you're on about." And he was like, "Do you like heavy music?" And I was like, right, thank fuck for that. He's on about music. And he said, "Meet me by the gates tomorrow." And I was like, okay, sure. And then I met him at the gate.
I'm going to teach you how to windmill.
Well, it almost started like that, almost. And he gave me the Hellfest DVD, and he was like, "Hey, go and listen to this. You know, go and check out a load of bands." And it was things like Buried Alive, Walls of Jericho, Bleeding Through, The Locust, which I weirdly got obsessed with.
Locust is
sick. I think that was the weirdest thing, that I was like so mesmerized by it. I was like, I'm weirdly really into this at the time, and I was like, that's insane. But all these bands I was checking out, and I come back then a couple of days later, I gave his DVD back, and he was like, here's a bunch of flyers for like local shows and venues and all that, and
awesome.
Start going to it. And he kind of started getting into the idea I was into like metal as well, so he gave me like Carcass, Heartwork and stuff. He was like, oh, you're into like groove and melody, so like this is definitely something for you. And then I'm sure he gave me I think it was Walls of Jericho record, Hatebreed record. It was quite a lot. It was like a pile, like a pile of stuff. And
Damn,
going to like local shows then, and this is where the story gets weirder. And there was a band. This is like, we talk about this all the time in Venom Prison, but I went to go and see a local band, and they were called Dignity Dies First, and they were like they were amazing, best band ever, and I still say that to this day. And they were like a perfect blend of like metal and hardcore, but like real metal, not metalcore, like real metal and hardcore. And I was like, this is fucking amazing. And I used to lose my shit to them all the time because they'd always play in my town and all that.
Yes.
And when I started Venom Prison, I remember messaging Ben saying, I always looked up to you all the time when you played shows and all that. And he was a guitarist of Dignity Dies First. And I said, ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to do a band with you because you were like my favorite. Like I used to love watching him play guitar and everything. And I was like, would you join Venom Prison? And that's kind of like how Ben and me kind of got together in Venom Prison, because I always used to go and watch his band when I was like a kid and stuff. And like still to this day, I always say to him that record that he did with that band is still my favorite record to this day. And it's really a shame because no one will ever know that record, because it got the other guitarist was a bit of a nutter, but he was a genius, and he couldn't let things go, and he re-recorded that album. I think there's like 9 versions of it now, and it never got released. It never got released ever, and still to this day, I'm just like, that record did so much for me. Like getting into
I want to
music.
listen to this record so badly now. Fuck.
I think you can find it on YouTube somewhere. Like I'll try and like find a link to it. Because like still to this day, like whenever I try and tell people like what really got me into that whole like blend of like, listening to metal and hardcore and going to hardcore shows and getting into all that, it was Ben's band essentially that did that for me at the time.
This is a wholesome story.
So like I think that's why like since we started Venom Prison, like me and Ben have always had just a really good connection with like writing and like doing everything together. And it's like, because it was just someone I was always like, this guy's, he could shred, like he's like a super shredder, like super switched on and stuff. And yeah, like I remember just saying, I was like, I'm starting a metal band, because we always knew each other from shows, and like we lived quite close to each other. And I ended up joining BWP, and he was doing his other hardcore band, True Valiance, and we always crossed paths. And I always used to just be like, man, that guy, I'd love to do a band with him. Like, I feel like with our ideas together, we could do something so cool. And like 15 odd years later, we made Venom Prison.
Yeah.
So it's weird how I like kind of got into music through all that. It's almost like a full circle almost.
Yeah.
The person I'm now writing music with was one of the reasons I was attending shows and going to shows regularly, because I just wanted to watch his band.
I love that.
That's
the
best story ever.
Yeah.
I'm like
wholesome as fuck.
I'm gonna go slide into Kurt Ballew's DMs and just see what happens.
Yeah, we should start a band, Kurt. We should 100% start a band. Well, I think that's a really cute kind of point to kind of move into the final beat of the show. Every week we like to ask an important question. An important question of the week. Like last week it was who is cuter, Wicket from Star Wars or fucking Gizmo from Gremlins? Because obviously it's a very deep and important philosophical question. But I'm proud of the one.
Team Ewok.
Yeah, Team Ewok, 100%. I'm proud of the one that I've come up with tonight because I think it's difficult, and I also like that it is a reference to Highlander. So we're going to call this segment "There Can Be Only One," and everyone has to choose this. Maybe Grant, we'll start with you. you can only pick one sub-genre. And I specifically say sub-genre, which you can listen to only this one sub-genre for the rest of your life. You can't just say metal unless you can clearly define metal as like Metallica, Sepultura, or whatever. So you can't, there's no like cutting corners.
The sound of steel on steel.
Yeah. So, Grant, let's start with you. There can be only one. Which subgenre are you listening to for the rest of your life?
Oh, see, I'd have to pick between death metal and deathcore. But if I only picked deathcore, I'd get sick of the vocals because half the bands have the same vocalist. But if I pick death metal,
it's true.
If I pick death metal, then I can't get any deathcore. So I'm gonna have to go with deathcore because at least I can get death metal and deathcore into some way. But if I just pick death metal, I get no deathcore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard. But at least get some different vocalists.
Fair.
Try change it.
Try changing it.
Okay, I'm going to run my voice through an octave pedal, and then I'm going to start and some distortion because I can't scream for shit, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, not
I
everyone.
can use pedals on my voice, all right?
Yeah,
not everyone has to be the same dude from Lorna Shore. Like you can try something different. He's good.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong. He's sick, but you don't all have to be that one guy.
I can make pig noises. See, I'm good to go.
Margy, what about you? For there can be only one. What subgenre are you picking?
Grant pretty much stole my answer. I ended up. I was like, well, deathcore has more musical variety than death metal in some ways. Like it's got a bit more innovation than death metal in some ways within the genre. Like musically. So that was kind of what lent me to it. I mean, yeah, if it's all the same vocalists, then I guess I just have to change the genre. But yeah, probably deathcore. God.
Wow. We're telling a lot about our hosts so far tonight. Ash.
Or just what about just death genre? So deathcore, death metal.
You got to have a specific, unless you listen to the band's Death, and that's it, which would be fine because phenomenal band. Phenomenal
good band,
but
I need a little bit more variation.
Ash, what about you? Where are you taking There Can Be Only One?
What? So can it be any genre are we talking for the rest, or has it got to be
any subgenre?
Any genre.
Whether it could be country music if you want to listen, but for country it's got to be. Are you listening to pop country, renegade country? Like you've got to specifically subgenre it down.
Ooh,
just
okay.
One for the rest of your life.
All right, this is quite a tough one then. But I think if I said alt rock, hear me out, because
I was tossing up alt rock because it covers a lot.
Exactly. I would listen to Placebo for the rest of my life. Like, hands down, my favorite band ever. I would choose them over any metal band on the planet. Like 100%. I don't think I could only listen to metal forever. Like from this point, and I think saying alt rock really gives me quite a nice broad bunch of bands that I can listen to. But if you said I couldn't listen to Placebo ever again, I'd just be like, I'm out. Like, I just want, why can't I listen to Placebo?
Alt rock, you see, alt rock includes noise rock in there. So that opens up big things. So like Chat Pile, for example, technically noise rock, which falls into the alt rock category.
Yeah,
so
they're two different categories.
McCluskey,
as judged during Executioner, noise rock is a different genre to alt rock.
Fuck off, Josh.
I made this segment and I can say there can be only one.
Josh, what about you?
Well, I thought about the two things that I love most about music, and I like something that's punishing, but I also am a sucker for cheese. Like I fucking love a bit of cheese. And so I think it would either be metalcore.
As long as it's vegan cheese.
Yeah. For me, it would either be metalcore or new metal. Because I want something hard, but something I can sing along to. And something that just kind of makes me happy. And because Limp Bizkit is the greatest band in the entire universe and of all time that will ever exist, I think I'm going to have to go with new metal. Because
I respect that.
New metal is cheesy, but it's hard.
Does that include Linkin Park?
Linkin Park is new metal, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, then you're fucking good to go. That's all your sing-alongs.
Like Limp Bizkit, Korn, Deftones, Sepultura, fucking
Deftones.
like
you don't have to bring up all these names. You don't have to lie to
Yeah.
us. We know it's because you want to be a juggalo.
It's just because
it's for its own purpose.
No, ICP are rap, and like if I had to, because I'm a fucking sucker for rap, and like it would actually be harder for me to decide if it was just rap, because it would either be like
the Great
like,
Malenko has some guitars in it.
Great Malenko, no, because it would either be like New York East Coast rap, or it would be I'm a sucker for the UK drill scene at the moment. I've been listening to so much fucking drill music. I'm going to see RD next week, and I'm fucking excited to see RD. And so I was like, I'd probably listen to drill for the rest of my life, because I think that'd be a fucking.
Oh, stop selling different genres so well. Now I'm confused. I regret everything.
It is my job
whale noises.
As
I'm
a
going
label
for whale
manager
noises.
and as a radio host. It is my job to sell all the genres I can. But yeah, I'm sticking with nu metal. I'm sticking with Limp Bizkit for the rest of my life.
I mean, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Can I just look, metal?
But that means you're listening to Metallica. Megadeth,
Nope, it's everything under the bracket.
No,
I will fight you.
It literally says in our show notes, specifically says you can't just say quote metal unless you clearly define it.
I don't need a man telling me what I can and cannot do. Right. I have enough of that in the music industry.
That card has finally been pulled. 15 episodes in, there it is. But dear listener, we need to know. Every Friday on the Northside Nerds Instagram, I do some amazing Photoshop work. There'll be something that involves fucking Highlander in there, I'm sure, because there can be only one. But I need to know.
I'm a Highlander.
You are. I'll put you on the head of what was that actor's
William
name?
Wallace.
Mel Gibson.
No, the fucking
William Wallace. Yeah.
No, Christopher Lambert. That was his name. He played the Highlander. I'm gonna Photoshop you onto Christopher Lambert's head. That's gonna be a challenge, but I'm here for it. But yeah, so follow at Northside Nerds on Instagram. I'll post the thing on Friday morning, and you let us know what is the only subgenre you're listening to for the rest of your life.
And tell us if we're wrong or right as well. Pick on Ash. Welcome, Ash. You get to get picked on. I encourage it.
But Ash, I'm not going to pick on you. I'm going to say it's been fucking awesome to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. And come to Australia ASAP so we can all play Magic together.
Yeah.
I think it's planned for next year, if I'm honest. We've been talking about it. So we need this year to have a bit of downtime, getting a bit of writing, bit of family time. But we're back in the studio in December, which everyone's like, "What? Why are you already back in the studio? You just did an album in February." And I was like, "Oh, I've been bored.
Because I fucking can."
I've been really bored.
I call dibs on being merch girl for the tour. Thank you very much. I will follow you around the country.
Sorted, done. That was the easiest tour organising I've ever done. Done.
Yeah, you just have to make sure you put as part of the contractual stipulations that you need a day off in Melbourne, and we can just play Commander all day long.
Yeah, there needs to be more days off on tours. Like, I'm sick of this whole thing. Like, oh, you're going away for 7 weeks. Isn't that great? It's like, well, no, not really. Because at least when you're at home and you're working, you get 2 days off at least on the weekend. We're still fucking going everywhere. I don't get a single day off.
It's like, oh yeah, but you're going to get to see all these landmarks. Yeah, from the bus window.
Honestly, I just got back from Vienna. I went on holiday last week and I got back from Vienna, and it was surreal to think that it was the first time I had been on holiday since I was 15 that didn't include touring. So I've been touring since I was 15, 16. Well, I'm 31 now, and that was my first holiday that wasn't touring. And I was like, this is so much better than touring.
Holiday?
I could just imagine you turning around to your partner being like, you see this? That Coke has sugar in it. I didn't know they had that.
What is going on here? When's bus call? No, you just go to bed. What do you mean I just go to bed? What, you mean I can have 3 meals a day? What do you mean I can have 3 meals a day on holiday? What are you on about?
You mean the bed's not behind the stage?
We don't have to hide the whiskey. It's all right.
You mean I can just go to a bar and have a drink? Yeah, of course you can. Why did no one tell me that holidays were great? I've been like buying this whole touring bullshit all my life because everyone was like, "Oh, you can go away for free," and now I'm just at the point where I'm like, "Fuck me, I'd rather pay and just have a nice time."
Yeah, I gotta pay for the drinks, but at least I get to do what I want.
Yeah, that was it. I couldn't get over it. It was like I was so like because I think I'm just wired. Like since a young age, I've only toured like through like all different bands, and like I think I was just like even when I'd wake up, I'd be like, "Oh, do I need to go to the shower first?" Like is the thing, and it's just like, Ash, it's pretty much just you and one other person. You can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm like, oh, I don't have to watch the hot water. I don't have to like I don't have to look for what's sleeping. I'm just like, this is fucking great. I got back and I put in the Venom Prison chat. I was just like, guys, I'm all about holidays now. Sorry.
Yeah, I gotta save my leave.
All right, listeners, we have to make Venom Prison's next Australian tour. We have to make it as holiday-esque as possible.
Yeah.
So we have to play the instruments
holidays
for
now.
them.
Yeah, I'm not playing. I'm just going on holiday. I'll attend the show. I'll attend all shows. I'm just not doing anything else.
All right, we'll start learning the parts now. We're good to go.
Absolutely. Ash, thank you so much. Listener, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ash.
Grant, Margy, thank you so much. Hashtag
Thanks, Josh.
Nerd out. No, you're welcome.